Happy Holy Day, Moors, and welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. Reawakening Minds exists to provide for exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. We are pleased tonight to welcome back our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey. Let's welcome him.
A few weeks ago, we were into the applied science of the number 9 woman in government, and I think it got a little hot, and so they chopped it off and blocked it so it wouldn't go out. So we're repeating part of it. Because you're going into basically what is known by scholars as Great Seal knowledge, or some of your higher degrees of masonry. That's generally the masses don't get. You know, like we're not talking about people in the orders where they got 32 degrees type thing. This is in your 360 degree level within that area. So they don't get it this either, for the most part. They get some of it indirect, but not blunt. All right? So we're giving it to you blunt. And the necessity is, and one of the reason we went into it, and it's not something that we haven't done over and over again in the past. It has more to do with the countering the dark priesthood operations. Once you kind of have a knowledge of the real politics, you kind of you look at things a little differently. But you also know that the general masses, if they don't have a background into the real politics of the planet, logically they're not thinking, you know, like you don't know what you don't know. And so we're, as a people, usually at a disadvantage because our thought processes are controlled by what is called the general public narrative, meaning mainstream narrative, what you learn in school systems, etc. And people, some who've gone through some of the secret orders will understand the information, they'll understand it. And some of it they'll know. But generally, as an open rule, meaning that laid out on the table, the card laid out on the table, they don't get it like that. They're usually given to them in like signs, symbols, allegorical stories that they have to figure out, whereas we're just telling you 2 and 2 is 4. When you get into 360 degrees, there are no secrets. This means they don't play with you. They're not trying to enslave you. They're not trying to block your mind. They just tell you the truth, you handle it. You understand what I'm saying? And logically, for the most part, it is 180 degrees contrary to what the masses get in their normal, what you call dispensation of information. And so remember this. When you're getting into the higher degrees of masonry, and we're not talking about club. Masonry is actually a science. It's not a belief system, and it's not a club system. Although they have clubs that aspire to masonry, are we clear? Not to be confused. You know, like they may have a chemistry club, like Abdullah was saying earlier. They might have a skating club. You know, they may have a sewing club. You know, but sewing club don't mean that you're a tailor. You understand what I'm saying to you? And masonry is really Islam the science, not Islam the belief system. This must be very clear to you. Keep in mind, there's a distinction between the science of life and the beliefs that people perpetrate toward the masses in the name of religion. Are we clear? I want to make this also clear too, because I know that most scholars will not say this to people. Not necessarily because they're being dishonest, though most of them are being dishonest. Some of them want to protect their clubs, want to protect their financial opportunities that keep their hands stuck in people's pockets over years. So most of the time they will not really just tell you the truth. They want to enslave you. They want to hoodwink you, to put it this way. And then they also know when they say wake some people up, right? If they told you the truth, then you know it sort of like starts making the playing table kind of equal. So they don't tell you the truth; they tell you stories, and you figure out the truth. You know, like say for instance, like I'll give you an example. Like they'll teach little children, boys and girls. That's another phrase that they'll use. Has nothing to do with age, or we're clear. And they'll refer to also as the dead. All right. Say an example, a study of the universe and our traveling in this particular solar system. Not that we haven't traveled outside of it in past centuries, but just for your base knowledge in this particular solar system. Say if you're dealing with the Seven Sisters and talking about star systems, etc. Or you're dealing with, say, the Big Dipper in that area, and say if you're dealing with our guide star that we've always used, Polaris, etc. Orion, and all these different star positions that are actually navigational points in this solar system. For those who really know what's up, they know that. But for the boys and girls, they're told Santa Claus is sleigh. That's an example. Are we clear? Now, it's a fiction, but it's not a fiction. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? It's called anthropomorphic presentment. And this is where, you know, like they give children talking animals that represent human voice and communication so that the children can relate to it. But when they grow up, they're supposed to be told that them animals don't speak. And Masons in the clubs will not tell you that. Do you understand? It's called cut your throat and throw them in the water type thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because if you wake up the masses, the sleeping giant, they may come get the rulers and find out that all these God games they've been playing on humanity for centuries is made up by the priesthood and have nothing to do with reality. And that the masses have really been under the control of the dark priesthood, not Jesus, God, Allah, and everything that they've been thinking. Are we clear? Hard lesson, but true. Most people, when told the truth, are not willing to handle it. Not that they can't handle it. Are we clear? Because everything that they've been built on around their lives in their mental is based on misrepresentation, and they have embraced it dearly to their detriment. You notice that the believers around the world are always poor, and the only ones who are wealthy is the ones who promote these games, and the state that backs them up that act like they're separate, and the priesthood who dress in royal robes, who stay in the shadows, who are really running things, and always collecting the fees called Roman tithe, 10% tax for Rome, called the tithe, and saying that they're giving it to Jesus and Allah and Muhammad and stuff. You know, that's the real deal. Now, the truth is they're all full of shit. And they're thieves. You know what I mean? That's just true. Now, for them themselves, they have what you call secret orders where they're told the truth so they don't start believing their own bullshit. And I guess you can kind of understand why, on a larger scale, in the social order of the politics of the world, why they don't like people like me. Because I won't take the payoff and play the game with them and take all these titles that they have to offer and help enslave the people. Then others who do, they just kill them, you know, to keep this thing going. However, what many people who are even part of the Moorish movement will not admit publicly, that Noble Ali put things in place to put a stop to that paradigm, which is why many people don't like him and why a lot of people don't talk about him. You understand? And many who do will misrepresent him. Are we clear? And this is where you see all the factions and all the BS, the infighting type stuff to keep the world confused. You understand? When the real deal, he came to remove the dark priesthood off your backs. And for the most part, he's done it. He lived to tell, although they eventually got to him. You know, so basically, the scholars of the world and the politicians of the world and the kingship oligarchy of the world all know who he is and what he actually did. The real problem is getting it across to our people without them getting into this worshipful mentality. Do you understand? Trying to worship him rather than really pay attention to really what he actually was doing. And then going through the dynamics of purging, as you might say, their demons or their concepts of what they think gods and devils and stuff are. Not knowing all the time they're under mind control. And then one comes to try to liberate them from that, so you gotta come with what they know and then kind of work them out of what they know. So that's a side of the Moorish Divine National Movement that, except among adepts, is not talked about amongst the club members. Are we clear? It's also why some of them don't like Taji Guy, because I don't play with them. You know, I don't deal with this information with the desire of being anybody's leader guy. There is no leadership in this venue. You are all divine beings unto yourselves. And because we have been put upon by Rome for generations, those who are sincere come with this information to liberate. Those who are insincere come with this information to fleece you. You know, so even though they have the same knowledge, their dispensation of that knowledge will be different. So don't think that people who don't talk like this don't know this. They have a different agenda, usually to enslave you and to keep their hands in your pocket. We're not saying that it doesn't take finance to do things, it does. Do you understand? However, servant is worthy of his hire and no more. You get the point? And these criminals of the dark priesthood have enslaved humanity, and humanity, for the most part, have been suffering in their misery, thinking some mystery devil did it to them. And it's actually the priesthood who they thought, in their mind, is this spiritual God, middleman guy who's been collecting finance for Jesus, not knowing that he's the demon, and always was. So it's kind of a hard knot, you know, to talk to people who've been trained under them for their lifetime. Their grandmoms, their grandfathers, you know, so they indirectly worship these people, you know, and very often get disappointed when they discover, you know, the deviant crap that these people do, which is usually protected and hidden. But all the miseries of the planet usually is directed by them. Whether your wars, the robberies of nations, the suppression of women, the killing of the family order, the murdering of children, including the eating of the children, sucking of their bloods, the making of high-grade make-up solutions for what they refer to themselves as the elite European royal families with the organs of babies that they kill. The contamination of humanity by feeding them their own offspring. This is why they started the abortion clinics. So they have the organs, they have the source for what they would call their blood drinking rituals. So when you see the preachers, when you see the priesthood doing the ritual of the crackers and call it the body of Christ, and then the wine they call it the blood, well, that ritual is only a ritual of what they're doing in the basements of them churches for real, and always have been doing. And that is devouring children and drinking their blood. And the people just think this is some kind of beautiful ritual of their love of the Lord type thing. Well, that's just an introductory, but the politics on the planet, because there's been counter moves and it's been expanding on the Earth planet, sometimes called Gaia, against the dark priesthood. In these most recent years, they have amped up their unum sanctum operations against humanity. And this is one of the reasons why we're reviewing this. Because although this information has been out among conscious Moors for decades, really not, more than 100 years, really. I recognize that many who know this information refuse to talk about this, because they also, many of them, while telling certain truths, are still themselves compromised, or we're clear. Meaning they'll tell some truth to get followers, and then block. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So people from people who don't have a background might say, come here to the House of Reawakening Minds and get some information from me, or read one of Abdullah Iltalib Mosley Bey's books, and then you may run into some grand sheiks or some brothers and sisters that are grounded in Moor science, and you'll see them attack this information as if we're lying or as if we're contrary. It's not that they don't know this information, it's just that when we expose this information, it makes them useless. Do you understand? It's sort of like they can't con you. They either gotta come to you on the square or leave you alone. And logically, most of them being dishonest and really being Islamic pastors. You understand? Because your mother made you, and ain't no other man clear. Are we clear? So once you understand some of these fundamental things, your approach to life changes. And of course, you find it quite difficult because many people discovering that you've woken up a little bit get uncomfortable with you. Friends, family, and others too, because you're no longer under the spell. In other words, they can't do this, and your eyes get all starry, and you start giving them your lunch money and type. And they think something wrong with you. You got a devil now because you ain't digging in your pockets and paying for Pastor Pig. So now you're a sinner. They really want you to go play on 295 now with your children at lunchtime because you ain't giving up the coins, and then they start accusing you of robbing the gods and a whole bunch of other stuff. And this tradition, they've been getting away with this for generations, actually. However, by the masses not really knowing the real politics, they're not knowing or not aware that the priesthood is planning on killing 2/3 of the population of the planet. And so under the unum sanctum policy, this is again why they've been amping up across the country, gentrifying communities. Because after this becomes what you would call widespread to the degree that the people start rebelling, they're already planning to kill them. Now understand this. Cancer, as you've been seeing it, is not a natural form, it's actually a military weapon. So the masses, for the most part, unless you're older, you know, say like myself or some of the other elders, most of you maybe didn't have the experience of seeing grandma and great-grandmother and recognizing, you know, that most of them operated in life, you know, when they were like 85 and 90 years old, they operated in life like a 50-year-old does now. Yep. And most people don't, by not having that experience, don't recognize that. In our communities, you know, the most usual thing that would be concerned, the most devastating thing would be consumption with what they call pneumonia. But like diabetes and stroke and heart attacks and cancer and all this stuff that our people are dealing with, you know, it's not natural. It's like rare. You know, it's not unheard of, but it's just not. There's some distant stuff that happened every once in a while, you know, over in some other state somewhere type thing. You understand what I'm saying? Not that it wasn't around. But, and then when it was, you know, they always went to the yard, you know, got pig knotting, you know, the inside bark of pine trees and other stuff, and just wash that stuff away. You know what I mean? Or they take apricot seeds, grind them up, literally grape seeds, stuff like that, which was normal medicine to counter what you would call out of sync cell structure, which is really what cancer is. You know what I mean? And the truth of it is, most people don't die from cancer. They die because it's a military operation. They die from, because the cancers that they've been calling cancers is really them attacking people's immune system. And most people that they say die from cancer, you know, they die from heart attack, diabetes, their organs shutting down and different stuff like that from the chemo, which is how they get rid of some of their nuclear waste, is really what chemo is. So it's guaranteed to kill you anyway. You know, so the business is, this is one of the things that the Romans have taken the position. And you notice that in all the big cities across our land, under the United States corporation jurisdiction, not to be distinct, not to be confused with the land. Understand the United States is a corporation of the Jesuit order, run by the Chancery and the Circle Church on Fleet Street, England, under the auspices of the Popes of Rome and the Bishopric of Rome. Are we clear? If you don't know that, your concepts of how to look at the politics is incorrect. People in the highest degrees of Masonry know that. Moors know that. The masses don't. Are we clear? So whenever the masses are looking at the politics or the arguments in the political platform that operate on our land at North America, they're usually arguing about Democrat Party, Republican Party type thing, what Trump did, what he didn't do, and you know, that's all a dog and pony show. Are we clear? That ain't the real politics. And on its surface, it has nothing to do with you, though it has everything to do with you at the same time. It's only because they're regulating your estate. They're arguing with each other over your estate. Can you get that clear? They're arguing with each other over the spoils that don't belong to either one of them. Are we clear? Although you may have a good guy, bad guy perspective. In other words, in the perspective of the politics currently, Donald Trump is the good guy. He's the good cop. Are we clear? However, they're still arguing over spoils and sovereignty that don't belong to neither one of them. Are we clear? And that is only because the world is starting to reject the harlot that you see in the book of Revelation. Yeah. They're the harlot. Are we clear? That's a whole nother story in itself. But that is really who they are. All right? And they're not operating in your interest at all on any level. If anything that any of them do benefits you, it's what you call collateral circumstance. Are we clear? None deliver. Are we clear? And the things that are going on in the political realm now, operating on the planet, and particularly focused from North America and then being projected to the world, put it this way, Donald Trump is a figurehead projection to argue over the spoils of the Moorish estate, which is what they're running the world off of. Are we clear? You, the people of North America, are the direct heirs. One of the great Masonic secrets to be preserved is for you never find that out. Are we clear? Even those who go into the lodges that call themselves Black Masons. Are we clear? Are we clear? Prince Hall and all the other club guys type thing. They're being played. They got a Moorish fez, and their lodge is named after, there's always a feminine, generally a feminine name. Their lodges are all mothers, even if they have masculine names of different Moorish chieftains, territories, or something like that, basically. But it's still, because the principle is the matriarchy. Are we clear? All right, so I'm just throwing that at you to give you some things to think about. And it's because we have limited time here. This is so that when you see certain things in the political realm, that you can start looking at things differently. And even though there's a lot to say, and a lot of things that we could tell you that we don't have the time to tell you, or to even necessarily put it in context, by telling you some of the things I've told you, it will liberate your mind to at least to some limited degree, that you can, if willing, see things differently. And if you're honest, you will see things differently. And they will not be able to BS you, meaning that you can look at the politics and you see a totally different thing. You'll look at different things that, as an example, what Donald Trump says or do, and where somebody's saying he's out to lunch, you'll recognize that he's absolutely not out to lunch. They're fighting. Are we clear? And everything that he says, not only is not out to lunch, is strategic chess moves. And everything he says, he doesn't necessarily mean. Strategic chess moves, are we clear? And the Ku Klux Klan Party, which is the Democratic Party, the flip side of the same coin of Roman order operating at North America, controlling our imperial divan, which is the true government that has been suppressed, sometimes referred to as the Republic, which is you. The world is no longer buying their T-bonds that they constructed after the closing of the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, because officially they actually started doing the T-bonds just at the early part of what they're referring to, the revolution against the Moors, sometimes referred to as the Civil War, which is a misnomer. Are we clear? It's only civil to the degree that Europeans were fighting Europeans over our stuff. It's not Americans fighting Americans, are we clear? It's Europeans fighting Americans and fighting among themselves for the spoils of America. Are we clear? Spanish-American War is a false premise too. Mexican-American War is a false premise too. Are we clear? Are we clear? It's the European versus American war, all of them. Are we clear? Once you really understand this in your mind, you look at all of the politics different, but you also recognize the necessity. I'm not justifying, I'm telling you the necessity for them maintaining secret societies where people who are ruling don't start believing the bullshit that they're told in what is called the public narrative. Are we clear? While they promote it, they don't believe any of it. Are we clear? They learn the art of dispensing it to the dummies, or to what they refer to as the dead. So the masses are considered dead. Are we clear? When you're brought into any of their secret societies, the general term or phrase that would be used, bringing you from a dead level to a living perpendicular, which means you're told enough truth to stand up, to come on a square. Now you're dealing with geometry, mathematics. You see that compass and the square and that G don't mean God, it's geometry, or clear. But it's also the geometry of truth, geometry of structure, geometry of metrology, how cities are laid out, the geometry of the structure of the body, the geometry of the chemistry of the body, the salts, the phosphates that your mother uses to build your body, the sciences behind it, the sciences of studying the universe or traveling the universe, the studies of the salts of the earth, the studies of the elements of the earth, alchemy, from which chemistry comes from, all of these disciplines, astrology, which is the truth of religion, all over the world, are clear. And the art of keeping it from you, are we clear? And like Brother Abdullah was saying earlier, when he was telling you about the symbol of the goat, which is a fertility symbol, etc. And I won't get into that. You can look in any of his books. And of course, those of you who had the opportunity to go into his literature, he's actually giving you masonry, 360 degrees. You know, and you ain't got to go through no ritual, get your ass beat and all that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? Serious? Well, and be robbed for the rest of your life while being hoodwinked at the same time. You know what I mean? So you can graduate at will. You want to graduate at will? Just get them books. You know, I say for the course of Michael Jordan, you can get all of them. You're still buying Michael Jordan sneaks. You go up there and take them home overnight. As fast as you can read and absorb it, you become a scholar and a master mason or Eastern Star. And understand, women are Eastern Stars by nature. That ain't a club. Do you understand? So you're dealing with the moon, the Venus, etc. The thing, the planetary energies. Although all of them do, we're talking about the major forces that have to do with relationship to generating your womb. In other words, sort of like the gestation, sort of like the chemistry, the natural chemistry. So where woman cycles, 13 cycles a year. Well, the year is a moon year, is a lunar year. That's why the Europeans will not acknowledge the 13th floor in building structures. And they call it mezzanine instead of, hey, that's 13th floor. Don't say that shit. You know what I mean? And so I'm just telling you these things, so certain things that you see in everyday life that people take for granted is really masonry. It's just that you're not told it is. Are we clear? But it's in your face, but if you're not told, you start thinking it's the devil and Baphomet and all that old stuff, and it's really, no, all that kind of stuff. And they're playing you. They're playing you. However, the subject matter is picked because the nature of things is the nature of life is that all living organisms of the kingdom of animal, the kingdom of man, the only creator that you can prove scientifically is your mother. All of the claims that are made that were been told to you by some man who's usually got his hand in your pocket and will not tell you the truth about the origin of the God game, which is really a game set up by the priesthood to rob humanity. And then, put it this way, to be blunt with you, most of these God systems that are promoted amongst humans were created by men, not reversed, not the other way around. This is why whenever you call them on the phone, they never answer. And this is also why no matter how much you pay them, they never save you. And you count the generations, and now that's the truth. But you know how many people will absolutely be offended by the truth? And that is the truth, and provable. However, it doesn't remove respect for divine creation. Are we clear? However, it's a misdirection of what it is, how it is, where it comes from, and who you are. As long as they can control that narrative, they can control you. That's why it's important for them, from their position, to control your mind, because then they got the body. Are we clear? And this is why when you deal with what they call religion orders, that they always focus on the woman. Why? Because they get her, they got us. Are we clear? Now, so you see this, you'll see this symbol. Excuse my scribble, but you'll see this sort of like this. And you'll see that symbol with that sword? Like you go in big time churches, you see that? That sword, that sphinx head, and the Moorish sword over it. Sometimes in the Bible called a two-edged sword. That means the subjugation of the Moabites. So the rule of that knowledge is understanding they subjugate the woman, they got the nation, because she is the nation. This is why in the public they always teach that the man is the head. Are we clear? Are we clear? Now, and that doesn't take anything from the sons, do you understand? But all of us were female eggs before we were sons in the womb. Are we clear? There is no male eggs in nature. Male eggs don't exist in nature. Are we clear? So all eggs are females. They're reflections of the creator of them eggs. And that is womb man, the man with the womb. You see? So man is not a gender. Man is the species. See, these are fundamental truths that is known by all scientists and all rulers and all elite and all masons and all eastern stars and all those who rule the planet, but is not told to those who are ruled over. Are we clear? They have to keep you in a subordinated mind. Therefore, they give you misinformation and get you disconnected from the nature of things so that you never take control of your lives. Are we clear? So if you control a man's mind, you don't have to worry about that body. The body ain't going to do a damn thing that the mind don't tell it to do. This is why the priesthood set up religion. Now, understand, I'm going to make this very clear to you. Write this down so you don't never forget this. When you're talking what they call Eastern religions, that's a misnomer. I'm going to repeat. Eastern religions like that is a misnomer. When you're talking about Islam, the science, ancient Buddhism, Confucius, etc., those are Eastern philosophies. Are we clear? The religion that has contaminated the world is Christianity, called the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed, tool of Constantine, Pope of Rome, for world conquest. So the masses, concepts, like a lot of times in order to confuse the masses, they'll say the major religions of the earth, and then they'll say Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. They'll say like they're put in that context. That's a lie. When you're dealing with the East, you're dealing with philosophies, not religion, although they have traditionally, in late years, called it religion. Are we clear? That's for mind control purposes. Christianity is religion. Islam is philosophy. Once you know that, you understand why Masonry is Islam, and they won't tell you that. Just like in Masonry, they refer to Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes thrice great. Well, Hermes and taught, Thoth, that you see in ancient Hikkupta, that they'll call for the masses Egypt, and Egypt, it's Hikkupta. Hermes and Thoth are the same, one and the same. Just like Dula was talking earlier about Easter, Astarte, Ishtar, all the same. Once you understand that, you know, the spook is out. Are we clear? And of course, the study goes on, don't it? But at the same time, you have tools by which you're no longer, how do you say, you start cutting them strings and start saying, oh, dang, I didn't know I could turn this on like this. Because before they had you doing like this. You didn't know you was a puppet. And that's what they've done in the name of religion. That's what they have done to humanity. And humanity, thinking it came from the lords of heaven, the heavens of God type thing, were willing participants. But those who promote that know it's mind control, and they themselves in their personal lives don't either hold to it, practice it, or believe a damn bit of it. They know that is mental medicine. Are we clear? It's for financial gain and for social control only. And so when people come to that charge and to them orders, the priests are told exactly this, and it may be structured in different words, Abdullah. And you can correct me if you will, as far as words, but I'm talking in theme. This is so that you don't get this twisted. You know, the Revs and all these God guys. Let us make it very clear to you, the candidate. The church didn't come from the Bible came from the church. That's one of the first keys to set you free from the mystery system. All right? And it doesn't mean that there's not allegorical truths in there, but if you don't have the keys, you can't break that book down anyway. You understand? So I'm just throwing that at you too, so you don't get spooked up. You don't throw it away, but at the same time, you don't get spooked by it. Are we clear? You seek the knowledge by which, because basically, if you know cosmology, you can look at the book differently. All right? Then if you know the history, the real history of the ancient Canaanite Moabite nations and the evolution of the humans on the earth, you can also look at the book differently. You see the point? And you won't be enslaved by it. If you don't know those keys, at least guarantee you'll be spooked up and enslaved by whoever's controlling, whoever gave it to you, and is controlling how you look at it. And they're doing it knowingly. So I'm just telling you that anyway. But because they've been accelerating their operations of reducing the population after they've robbed everybody, which is what they've been doing, you need to be aware of that. Discovering, most of you, that you have limited or know what you will call defensive powers. You have no army type thing. However, you got the biggest weapon in the world, it's called truth. The deal is to learn how to use it sincerely and honorably. And the other deal is to encourage woman to clean herself up from the mental midgetry and to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and then start using the power of the womb to bring champions here to start curing the problems on the planet. But she has to know the knowledge of herself. Are we clear? Sometimes it's reference of her being preoccupied with the cares of the world. That's another way of putting, which means that she's distracted. And she's adopted the dogma systems that actually has put her to sleep. And she's charged the world with it when actually she herself must come out of this herself. She's got to stop looking for the outside gods type mentality. Are we clear? Go within and come out honorable, because then nature herself, in other words, the cosmos mother, reconnects you to everything. Are we clear? Because you know more than what you think you know. It's just that you've been blocked. But religion has been used to block you. Are we clear?
Yes.
In other words, you're constipated, spiritually constipated. Although spirit is breath and breathing techniques, I'm saying that only in the context of how what you are told spirituality is. We're talking about Gnostic wisdom. Are we clear? You've been constipated. And so the deal is you're here at the House of Reawakening Minds to get a laxative. And now we're going to get into the politics. I know you had a question, but go ahead and ask the question.
Could you explain how Job and Job is pretty much the same?
Of course it is. Now just look at it, because, there's the etymologist over there. Job and Job, long O, short O. Here you go. Because remember, everything is about a state. Are we clear? Are we clear?
Clear.
So Job and Job, remember, the nature of the priesthood is to enslave humanity. Now, that's connotative. Are we clear? To put humanity into what you call forced servitude. And of course, slave connotatively is used connotatively in modern linguistics, which is not its true meaning. Do you understand? Well, we're talking connotative because slave actually is origin with Slovakian nations who were subdued. Are we clear? So it's really an identity. Nationalities. Are we clear? Now, but the term that's generally given to the public, that means you've been subjugated under what you call peonage and forced servitude. So we'll call it what it is, forced servitude. So for Rome to conquer the world, they needed not only to claim your estates, but they claimed you dead, and to steal your estate, then kill you physically. Now, because of the numbers, they needed to put you against each other. All right, are we clear? So the tradition, to give you an example of what Rome has been doing for their whole time on this planet. Some of you remember, maybe in school, when they talked about the Boston Tea Party, when they threw the tea over in Boston Harbor, and then you see the Europeans put on what they call blackface to imitate the indigenous people, and understand we ain't Indians, and this ain't India, but that's one of the terms that the European created in order to disconnect us from the land and the history. Just like they do in the Mummers Parade in Philadelphia. They used to do it in what you call blackface. And some of your first European stars in movies and stuff like that, like Al Jolson and all that, they did what they call blackface. All of that is imitation of you. Are we clear? And so what that's called in politics is false flag. Are we clear? So like, say for instance, in order to begin to conquer us, what they call a divide and conquer, they'll go up, say in north, like say in this area here, that's now called Delaware, right? Whereas before, among our people was a Nanapook, right, Moors. And then you get just a little bit more north and up to Shakopee territory, which you call Jersey now, and the Shakamoxon area, Philadelphia and all that stuff, and maybe up in lower New York, Lenape. Actually, Lenape with an R. They'll say Len with an N, but it's actually Lenape. They'll say Len and Lenape, right? And then you have many of you in here, family members from the Anayanwea, or they'll say Cherokee. It's Anayanwea, from the area of Virgin, Maryland and Virginia area, down in North Carolinas and all that other stuff. And what they'll do is they'll come kill your family and kill your animals and stuff, and they'll do them blackface, and then they'll wear beads that are traditionally worn by you or different traditions of the different tribal areas, and then you'll go and raid them thinking that they did something to you, and then what the Europeans will come and fund both of you and act like they're on one side or the other and actually get you start killing each other off. It's called false flag. They use it to the very day, to this very day. And that's what they've been doing to you. And by them having done or instituted those practices for so many generations with us, this has much to do why our people are divided psychologically with each other and don't trust each other. It's in your gene. You forgot your history, but it's still, that defensive mechanism is in your gene. So you got to know the real history so that you can consciously start countering it. It's necessary for your survival. Are we clear? Now, in the state of mind that you're in, and the operations, sanctum operations coming under the subdivisional operations, also referred to as the Christian Black Codes or Codes Noir, which is adopted in the corporate operations of all the corporate jurisdictional states, systems of the Jesuit order that you're calling the state of Pennsylvania, state of Delaware type thing. These are actually franchise districts run under archbishops of the territories. Are we clear? Are we clear? Have nothing to do with the land. They're creations on paper. Their job is to convince you that it's the land. And so your training would be in that order. And so most of the masses, when you say the state of Delaware, they're thinking it's physical land because they're trained like little rats from childhood to actually not know the difference. The Santa Claus thing. Now, if you belong to a secret society, you are told the distinction so that you don't believe the bullshit that the masses get. This is, if you want to kind of look at it in a synopsis, this is the advantage that people in secret societies have over the masses, is that they're told some truths about how things really operate. Are we clear? Some truths how things operate. And so while they're dealing with you, they're thinking from a totally different level. Are we clear? Notice also that all persons that are the heads of any corporate entities operating at North America or in the jurisdictions of what is called the state's orders, are, write this down so you don't forget it, are members of the Roman Curia. Are we clear? So if you have somebody that's and you don't have to name them, that runs Sears and Roebuck, that runs Amazon, that runs Kmart, any of these organizations, any of the municipality corporate entities, all the so-called administrative clerks that are faking as, not saying this so you get this understood, faking as judges, who are really auctioneers. They're administrative clerks, auctioneers in a commercial venue for human trafficking, calling themselves judges, which they are not. Are we clear? Are we clear? All of them are members of the Roman Curia. If somebody's member of Illuminati, Roman Curia. Shriners, the Europeans mainly, member of the Roman Curia. Knights Templars, members of the Roman Curia. Knights of Columbus, members of the Roman Curia. Daughters of the American Revolution, members of the Roman Curia. Dragons of the Ku Klux Klan, members of the Roman Curia. The ghouls in your higher degrees, members of the Roman Curia, all corporate heads and CEOs of any corporate entity under England and the secret treaty of Verona are members of the Roman Curia. Are we clear? If you understand that, don't get confused with the different secret orders, because ultimately they all have the same agenda, and that is splitting up and making claims over the controlled Moorish estate on the planet Earth. Are we clear? That is the real politics. If you really kind of synopsis, if you want to give a synopsis of the politics on the planet Earth, the economic system that you're calling the economic system, etc., everything is predicated in your modern contemporary world, the defeat of the Moors. Are we clear? The fall of the Red House in Al-Andalusia, that was after the fact, called Spain. Are we clear? January the 1st, near midnight, 1492, the fall of the Red House, which is called the Alhambra. This is why the palace in Washington is called the White House, which means Casablanca. So when you see those old movies, Casablanca and Morocco, they're actually making a movie telling you it's here. You thinking it's on that side. Do you understand? So it's in your face. That's why they call it the White House. Casablanca. You see? So that's the Moorish palace, and they're running your government, actually. So that's part of your higher degrees of masonry. 2. So all of these people are imposters. All of them. Are we clear? Now, logically, the Europeans, who have been pretending to be Americans, and their minions call themselves Black Negro, marching, keep hope alive, praying, 32 and 33 degree Mason Negro marching guys all over the place, are controlled. That's why all of them secretly are Masons in the club order. Are we clear? Though Masonry itself is not a club, it's science. But the Freemasonry club order, they brought them to one of them orders and give them a few taffies and make them think they got something going on. Now the other deal is once they're woken up a little bit, they can't go backwards. But now they can be halted in their advancement. You know how they start little children off by giving them taffies, giving them sugar, now they hooked. They want taffy, and with Masonry, what they do in the clubs, they say, oh, they really don't know what's over them. They're dead. And then they give you the carrot. Man. And then they put it on a string and put it in front of your face, and the rest of your life they got you following these carrots for the next degrees. You can't go back, but they control how you advance. And so what they do, they usually pick what they say, the cream of the crop. Like they watch you and they see how you roll, and you seem like you got a little bit of character going on. You got some potential controlling people, or you have some kind of influence on the people. They come tap you on the shoulder, drop a little bit on you, see how you respond. Right? You respond positively, then somebody pulls you as a candidate. Say, why don't you come to the lodge? We can show you a few things, and blah, 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 stuff like that. Say, I want to come to the club. Then you do the moonwalk into the club and stuff. And then, then you start, coming as a journeyman and all that stuff, entered apprentice and all that kind of stuff. Start digging in your pockets and stuff like that, taking care of past masters and potentate worship of masters, all these guys. Lords of the realm type thing. And after a while, most of them come in, some come to party, some come to learn. So you come York rights, Scottish rights, and those who really know what's up get Moorish rights. But that's very few, you see, because it's all Moorish science. So they give them a Moorish fez. It's in their face. and then they call themselves black. They're clandestine. You know how you say, they give you the truth and you come back, you come out of there and still in darkness? You're clandestine. But anyway, that's just to drop a few things on you to relook at some of your experiences in life and different people that you've dealt with in business, different people you've dealt with in different economic circumstances, people who you thought was on the inside of certain things, and then go back to some of the things I've told you, and then you'll look at things differently. Are we clear? So let's talk about countering some of Rome's work, right? So, we're in the mentality that we're the head in a sense. This way you're taught. In truth of science of life, nature of life, all species are traced through the mother, through the female, not through the male. All inheritances in nature come through the mother. This is why when you go into ancient Asiatic African culture, even though we the sons, you'll see us out doing things, we're projected to do things, the real controlling factor is always taken back to the circle of mothers. And then they set the law, and then we, being projected, or what you call the more aggressive, we go do the building. In other words, they make the rules, we carry out the law. So this is where you get ill and bad. Obey. You see? Now we're talking about how nature works. Now in the science of government structure and in the science of masonry, you're made aware of that. Are we clear? We're not talking about what you practice or what you think you're practicing. We're talking about the real world. And so they have this distinct advantage over you because they're taught these things rather than having to relearn them in nature. Are we clear? I mean, rather than have you know, because really, if you study nature or if you deal with your experiences in life, you come to this conclusion anyway yourself. It's just that most of us, particularly the males, you know, we get about 75 and 80 and all stuff, and we start talking the stupid stuff. Damn, if I knew then what I know now. You know, but your life is wasted anyway. We can't do shit anyway, so what? Go suck a taffy. You know, and the real deal of it is, and you'll see these statements made in life, but they're really real. But the nuance of the knowledge is often not dispensed in that type of conversation. It is that inner knowing that you've been played. And then accepting your position in life and trying to find a comfort zone. And surviving this thing out, you know, well, may as well prepare to die, you ain't doing shit now. You know what I mean? Well, what it is. You know what I mean? And though people experience that, rarely are the nuances of what that really is in the human experience ever really explained or really discussed scientifically. It's just, you know, colloquial statements that are accepted. Reality is, you get a taste of reality through the experience of life. But why wait till you get old and the body's useless to find out the lessons of life? That's why they also have secret societies. So that you don't get wasting your life in dogma systems, which is really what it is, used up. And then in your older age, when you're pretty much used up, start learning the truths of life, and now you can't do, not that you can't, but most, you know, it's like the new wine and old skin type thing. You see the point? Yeah. Now, truth of more sciences is to get you from childhood and get rid of that Roman dogma system so that the nature, the true nature of the being can actually be developed in the garden of life without the bullshit. Which is also why people who really know what's going on really don't want these people to get this knowledge. Because all of the institutions that they've been misguided by all their lives will collapse overnight. Because 90% of it is literally royally packaged bullshit. Which is hard for most people to be willing to handle, not that they can't handle it. Now, so as people are exposed to this information, they also have the advantage of using it positively or negatively, knowing that the masses, for the most part, are asleep. And so you'll see some people get this knowledge and use it to try to help the people, and you'll see other people get this knowledge and preoccupy their lives looking for power positions and opportunities to get in people's pockets and make them followers type thing, which is usually what takes place, which is also why we're in trouble, which is also why we're doing this lesson tonight. Again, that was chopped up off the internet last time. Are we clear? Now, for those of you who already know, and like I say, the phosphates and the salts, 12 salts, they're referred to as the salts of the earth, that woman uses to build the temples of Solomon, which is the physical body, that in masonry is referred to as the building of Solomon temple in the womb of a woman without the sound of a hammer, the rasp of a saw. What it really means is done in the silent darkness of the womb, the first school. If the woman is wise, the offspring is born knowing. So they don't want woman to know herself so that she doesn't start doing that. Because what will happen? These champions will start countering the dark priesthood. This is what is symbolized in the Bible where Herod is killing the firstborn. That's what that really symbolizes, getting rid of the champions. In other words, putting woman in darkness by killing her offspring. And then putting her in the mental of subservience so that she'll stop teaching her children. And this is also symbolic of the Moabitess abandoning her true culture and adopting the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed of Constantine, Pope of Rome, under the guise of Christianity, and then delivering her children to the priesthood as a sacrifice. And this is what they've been doing. This is why we are messed up. Us, the sons. Because they presented us as thinking that we're worshiping the Jesus of God, of heaven, of Allah, of Jesusness, of the Lord of the creation. No, it's the Lords of London, under the secret tree of Rome. And all your reverends know that. This is why even when they do the bank bond, delivering the womb to the Pope of Rome, they do the ritual. They call it christening, right? And also with the so-called marriage and stuff like that. And they'll say, by the power vested in me, by the state of Delaware. I pronounce you man white. They just told you they're state agent. But the breath before, they telling you that there's separation of church and state. And then they tell you bluntly where their power really comes from. So later, when you figure this stuff out, you can't call them a liar because they told you. This is what you see in the Bible when it says, when people start saying, I wouldn't have stole that bike because the devil made me do it. And then he goes through this thing about, oh yeah, well, I just called, you followed. Meaning the responsibility is yours. That's what it's simple. This is why the dark priesthood will always tell you what they're going to do to you. Even if they do it in a code, in a movie, in a comic book, in a child story, in the Matrix, in the Black Knight, in Wild Wild West, in True Romance, in multiple stories, in Robin Hood, in The Wizard of Oz. They're telling you over and over again, right to your face. But if you don't see the allegorical story, you're looking at it they're just entertaining you. But then from a karmic perspective, they just got over it. Do you understand? Because they can always say, you know, we just called you foul. No different than, even though they're still not telling the truth, they'll say things like this in the book, in the Bible as an example. They'll say Jesus was the king of the Jews, right? So therefore, he brought Christianity out of the cloud of glory. And if you're not a Christian, you're going to die in hell and burn in fire. Oh, wait a minute. Wait. I thought you said he was a Jew. Wait. Where did this part come from? See, they know the average person don't even think that deep. That they lie to you right to your face. Right in your face from the door. So all these people who run around saying Jesus, no, Jesus this. Well, why ain't they Jews? First of all, ain't no J in Hebrew anyway. Ain't no J in Aramaic either. Really? Julie, when did J become commonly used in language?
1500s.
And then officially in structured literature around 1517, right? So even though it started being used in the 1300s in that area, as far as being, you know, starting to be widespread where it becomes known to the general populace is around 15, right? Right in the 15 area? Julie?
Is that?
We're not talking about when they started using it, we're talking about when it became commonly in generally public use, it's around 15.
Yeah, 1500s.
Yeah.
King James Bible.
Yeah, so now Masons and scholars and reverends and all these holy guys are selling people religions in their different flavors. No damn well with no ancient Jesus. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because they already know about the Nicene Council of the Bishopric of Rome, where they met, destroying literature, burning stuff, killing people who didn't go along the program, and they made up Jesus. It's not that it's made up, it's called alteration or modification or morphing, linguistic morph. So it's the Son, Ios, or the Son, Horus, Ios, etc. The literal Son of this particular solar system. It got nothing to do with some being. You see what I'm saying? So they know it that way, but with the anthropomorphic presentment, the people run around looking for some figure man. You see the point? Son of God, where the guy who's promoting it, looking at the Son of God, or the Son of good, or the Son that does good to life on the earth, which is just simply an anthropomorphic way of telling it to children. Just simply talking about the seasons, the transits of the sun, equinoxes, etc. How the sun, you know, gestates or helps give life in harmony with the moon. So the sun like kind of gestates a type thing, and then everything grows in the moon. You know what I mean? So if you really want to see a plant grow, it ain't growing so much in the daytime as at night. Like when I go in the bathroom, when I look at I'll be looking at one of my plants in the bathroom window. Got a 6-inch pot. You know, I bought it at the depot. Remember that 6-inch pot? Right. Little 6-inch pot. I bought 2 of them. I gave one to my sister. That thing's all the way up to the top of the window, all the way wrapped up the zinc and curling up the wall and over here. I had to put some sticky things up there and start pulling the vines up. It's all running down on the floor. Wow. Everything all I do in the morning when I go in there and wash up, I kiss it and you know, love it and stuff like that, and put my arm on it, you know, to feel it. So, you know, so she knows I love her and she loves me. And she's like, wow, she's like, this thing is like, yeah. And, you know, because you have a relationship with nature. You know what I mean? Once you understand those things, you know, and things change, how you look at stuff. But now keep in mind, Rome looks at the humans. So let's not get this twisted. Everybody that you see with 2 legs ain't human. Let's get that out the way immediately. Let's get that out the way immediately. Although we historically been blended, and they're calling it scientifically the bouquet. Nevertheless, everybody walking with 2 feet, 2 arms are not human. So don't get confused because the Europeans, some of them act like beasts. And it confuses our people who don't know the real history. That's not really told. Are we clear? And it really confuses them because they don't know. Are we clear? So in Masonry, they'll talk about things about, like when they took the, just think Wizard of Oz and the flying monkeys. Right, just think of it that way. That's symbolic. So the flying also represents interstellar travel, not just flying in the air. And then some agreements that were made, and we kind of messed up a little bit with some of the experiments and mixed some things that didn't turn out too well for us. And that's Rome, which is called the Red Man. Roman means red man. So red man ain't Indian. Red man is European. Roman. And when you hear the word Rothschild, people thinking about a family. Rothschild really means red shield. And it's really a lot of the body of knowledge of Masonry that's hidden from the masses. So most of the masses look at Rothschild and they be thinking a specific family that's been controlling the financial system alone. Kind of a wrong concept. Are we clear? You can use that generally refer to the Roman order in general, although some of the families use that as what you call their cognomen. Are we clear? So the countering that's going on the planet today, including some Moors waking up to more degrees, is them starting to learn the truth about Rome and themselves and beginning to understand the human trafficking that's been going on to the planet that's been hidden or disguised under other methodologies. Are we clear? That's been pretty much hidden in your face, though hidden. And that's been problematic with us all, but must start to be dealt with in order to save the planet and to save humanity. Again, while we're dealing with this lesson tonight. Are we clear? Okay. Now, ultimately, on another level, it's also an appeal, because you can't tell anybody what to do, because you're sovereign unto yourself, truthfully. But in the recognition of the honor of your mothers and fathers and for the suffering of those who came before us and the generations coming after us, if we have, for those of you that have any love left, that have not been bestialized to the degree that you have no compassion anymore or any parts, meaning because they've been trying to work the humanity out of you. Are we clear? And then when you have women that really don't know themselves, who have been steeped into this dogma system for generations, they've been giving birth to children who are heartless. When they say they are ruthless. So when you read the book of Ruth, in the Bible, Ruth, the Moabitess, she's used symbolically around the world for the compassion of nationality, the compassion of nationhood, the salvation of nationhood. But that's on another level, not what you see in the book the way it is. It's dealing with a woman who knows herself, who builds Solomon's temple consciously with her knowledge in order to help save humanity, i.e. the nation. Are we clear? That's what it really means. Are we clear? So we're appealing to women in general, knowing that most of them don't have source to this knowledge that we're talking. So we know on the surface, so take it beyond the surface, that with some it goes like this a little bit as we're talking. We're talking over your head, but not over your head. We're not telling you anything that you really don't know. We're talking, appealing to the divine that's in you, or what you really know about yourself, and encouraging you not to be afraid and to actually respect yourself. Start trusting yourself. And to start helping to bring cure on the planet. Are we clear? Because the cure comes from you. But because we have suffered much at the hands of Rome, many have suffered much. Women have seen their sisters, cut asunder by Rome, hung upside down, guts split up, drop the babies, and the Europeans stomping the babies. They've watched their men get castrated. They've watched their families getting broken up. So psychologically, the women have been traumatized. Are we clear? Yeah. Some of them have forgotten this history, though it's in their genetic memory. And so some of it is suppressed to such a degree that they think they don't know it. And they also don't want to be reminded of it. However, for the last few generations, they've been delivering their children to Rome via the local priests and pastors, not knowing that they're really agents for Rome. Are we clear? Not knowing they're helping to destroy their own families. However, it's gotten so bad that the truth must be told because they have to rescue themselves and rescue us. So we must get out of this mentality that we, being the sons, we must, yes, be their protectors, but in the nature of things, she's still the superior being. And you have to recognize that. Are we clear? And if she's conquered, we're conquered. Are we clear? Are we clear?
Clear.
So the appeal is to go within yourself, to begin to draw out of yourself confidently the nature of self, absent of arrogance, absent of insincerity, absent of selfish gain, absent of hatred, and things like that, where women have been trained to do what they call catfighting with each other. That's a design. Are we clear? That's a designed war psychology of psychic attacks that's been trained over generations. So many women will think that's just the nature of women, when it's not. Are we clear? It is for you to destroy yourself by destroying your family, thinking that you're really doing good. This is, again, why most relationships don't last over 3 years. Particularly in any political jurisdiction where the Europeans have been ruling, what they like to call Western world type thing, relationships usually don't go past 3 years. If it does, you're good. And usually then you're still trying to get away from each other. It's by design. Are we clear? But once you get back to the culture, you'll be able to see through that you've been manipulated. Are we clear? And we know that many are not willing to deal with these realities. But for the few who are, the appeal is being made to you to start helping to cure humanity. Go ahead, Billy.
I just want to provide some clarity.
Go ahead.
For those who are new with the concept of sovereignty. You are sovereign unto yourself. Keep in mind that the extending of the national of your sovereignty to a body politic has already been done. Already been done. See that Bush flag? I hear.
Stay in the mic.
I hear nationalized Moors say, talk to me. I need to go. Wait a minute. I hear.
Yeah, right there,
I hear nationalized Moors say, I am sovereign.
Come over here, Billy.
That means, if I hear that, that means they don't know what they're talking about. What? This is very important. It's very important. When you hear nationalized Moors say I'm sovereign, they don't know what they're talking about. You can't see that national flag? You can't have this national flag behind you and say, I am sovereign.
It is a we.
Morocco is sovereign. You're not going to go to China and hear a Chinese say, I'm sovereign. China is sovereign.
Yes.
The extension of your sovereignty has already been done thousands of years ago. It's already done. So we're not talking about establishing a new sovereignty.
Exactly.
It's already existing. All right? You already have, there are pre-existing treaties. I got treaties in the book, Moors and Masonry, dating back to the 1600s. England, Morocco, France, Morocco, the Netherlands, Morocco. Treaty of Peace and Friendship. Treaty between the Day of Algiers and the United States. So there are pre-existing treaties. So it's very clear that these nationalized Moors say that I'm sovereign. You never want to say that. Why was it? Why?
A lack of context.
Is it because they got that from the European freedmen groups?
Yeah.
They got that. They got it on the website. I already know where they got it from. They got it from European freedmen groups' websites. The European freedmen groups who don't talk nationality at all.
At all.
You can't. There's no discussion of sovereignty outside of nationality.
Exactly.
At all. The European freedmen groups, though they say have the word sovereignty on their websites, in truth, they're not really actually talking about sovereignty because they never talk nationality. You cannot talk sovereignty in truth without talking nationality because the sovereignty has to be identified. Chinese sovereignty, French sovereignty, English sovereignty, Danish sovereignty, Dutch sovereignty. What sovereignty are you talking about?
Exactly.
All right, so I just wanted to make that point clear that
Thank you.
yes, we are sovereign unto yourself. However, the extension of our sovereignty has already been extended to a national body politic.
There you go.
I will yield the floor.
All right. Thank you, Abdullah.
Wow.
Now, and this is also one of the things that he was mentioning earlier, and this is back to where a certain person that we were talking about, that we had a meeting with in this room, and I won't mention his name, who's looking for power. When some people thought that he's thinking a certain way, well, that's for the public. But in private, he admit that our position was correct and consider us brave for doing it. And he has the knowledge too, and he has other paperwork, etc., which he plans to use for selfish purposes of becoming grand poobah type thing. And so like Abdullah was saying earlier, where you'll see a lot of them promoting amongst the Moors in the temple, etc. The Al-Moroccan flag, that's the American flag, and they'll say Moorish, and then look at the trading banner of English colony operators under the treaty, which is the Star-Spangled Banner with the stripes, and call that the American flag, knowing that they're lying. Are we clear? Knowing that they are lying. Are we clear? But it projects a thought pattern amongst people who are coming into this movement if it's not clarified. Are we clear? So that's the American flag, called the Moorish flag. It's the American flag. And the other flag is the treaty flag, flag of amity and commerce. And it is the bringing them into government forum that creates the real union. Are we clear? Also, what you'll see represented with the seals on the back of the debt note of the Jesuit order called the Federal Reserve, which is their private commercial paper. It's not money, it's private commercial paper, debt notes. Are we clear? And even Aquila i.e. the eagle, also don't belong to them. Still belongs to you. Are we clear? But they'll put the shield over Aquila, to hide the heart, etc., and stuff like that. And then you'll see them have the arrows underneath for war, etc. So even that's not theirs, but this is the sanctioning of them doing business at Morocco. Are we clear? And so when they're showing you the pins and everything, and they're saying the Moorish, American, they also often don't break that down, that stars and stripes is not the American flag. But they let people think that is. Are we clear? That's the American flag. Are we clear? Now, your nationality, Moorish American, we always are all over the planet. Like if you see the Philippines, right? They're Moros, they're Mori. You'll see the people on Easter Island and different islands, they're Mori. You'll see the people in the South, they're Mori. They're all Moors. However, when it comes to the cribbed estate, or what you call the robbed estate, the major part, although they've been conquering most of the world, of the North, what they call in Masonry, the North Gate, and they treasure this phrase, particularly among Shriners, that they are the keepers of the North Gate, which signifies the heartland of the Moroccan Empire, which is North America. And this is where Abdullah was explaining earlier, where it's often misrepresented deliberately, it's not accidental, by people who pretend to be following the instructions of Noble Drali to help redeem these people and bringing them back into the constitutional fold of government, which they absolutely do not do. Why they let that false concept project amongst the people so they can keep them at what you call a low degree gradient and control them. Are we clear? So when you see what appears to some to be divisions, understand the division is artificial. Are we clear? Don't be thinking that these people don't know what the hell they're doing. They do know what the hell they're doing. And just because very often they'll make videos and criticize us or try to act like we don't know what the hell we're talking about, the real deal is once you know the real history, you'll know who's compromised and who's not. Are we clear? Not because I say so or someone else says so. But it confuses people who come in because they'll see the positions that seem to be diametrically opposed. Don't get it twisted. No different than, as an example, from an organization level, not from a more broad level of the true politics, on a lower level of learning. The same way, Malcolm, that you all know as Malcolm Little, and you see them movies they make of Malcolm X, and you'll see the attacks on his character by people of his own order that he became a part of. Right. And the masses really don't know why they really murdered him, because he found out that this is Morocco and it's a Frenchman that schooled him. You understand? And they also knew that he was going to tell because they couldn't buy him off. So when people be looking at Europeans and calling them race, white man, and all that stuff, no, it was internal people that helped assassinate him, get him out of the way, because he would have blown the deal. Do you understand? All those people know these people are Moors. Are we clear? That's why very often you'll see them hiding the pictures of Elijah Poole Bey with his fez on. You'll see him mostly with his kufis, with his little tarbushes, like that, and kufis, dressed with the crescent and star turned backwards. But they'll hide the pictures of him with his Moorish fez on because they don't want the people to know that he was an addict in the Moorish movement. Are we clear? And that when J. Edgar Hoover, they set up COINTELPRO operations, infiltrated the movement to break the movement up, that was a break-off, and that was called, at that time, the Temple of Allah. Are we clear? Which was a break-off from the Moorish Science Temple. Are we clear? So Malcolm found out those things and a few other things, and that he became a liability. So I'm telling you some things that a lot of people don't know who are not in the movements, because I was also a minister in there. So I already know a lot of what the masses don't know. and that most people ain't going to tell you because it's sensitive. It's sensitive to them. Truthfully, it's sensitive. You know, I don't look at it as sensitive. I think you should know your history. You know, our history, good and bad, own it. That's my position. You know, own it, because you can't lie and then expect nature to come to your aid while you're talking about what the European is doing. You know, look, white man. He ain't white man. He's European. You know, they won't even tell the people the truth that they know that white means sovereign. They're not talking a color. They're not talking a complexion. They're talking a status. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? You know, no different than for those who may know, as an example, in your actual facts in the Nation of Islam, that one of the questions that we often call them the Lamb, that Elijah Bey, known as Elijah Muhammad, presented to the followers was, what is a Mason? And the response, or the answer was, a Mason is a Muslim son. He didn't say Muslim son, he said Muslim son. You know, and then most of the members call themselves Muslims. But they're not explaining the translation of the switching of the O and the U, or what it really means. Not that they're different. They're still the same, but it ain't the same the way you think it is. When you're saying Muslim, you're talking more to science. When you're talking Muslim, you're talking more to ritual. Or the dogma side. Are we clear? It's not to be rejected. You said that they're more or less different sects put up against each other to fight each other. Are we clear? And still controlled by Rome. Are we clear? I just want to throw that at you to give you something to think about concerning Malcolm that they ain't telling you about. Again, the cure, you know, for us is still the woman. It does not relieve us, the sons, out of the equation. Don't confuse it. It means our energies must be redirected. Are we clear? And redirected with knowledge, not with emotionalism, selfishness, or selfish intent. Knowing that you've got enemies on both sides. Are we clear? So you'll see, and the more and more awake you get, you'll see more and more people. As an example, I'll show you a perfect example. Many of the people listening, and many of you who come here to the House of Reawakening Minds, many of you who've been here for years, and many of you who've been here recently, and some of you maybe for your first times. You know, you will see different things come on YouTube and stuff like that where putting Moors grouped against each other type stuff. The divide and conquer tactics. And you'll see guys run around looking for power. You'll see them condemning us telling these truths to you. Understand most of them know the same information. They just won't speak publicly because it defeats their agenda. And their agenda is control the people and get your finance, collect finance for buses that they'll never buy, collect finances for schools that they'll never establish. Are we clear? Misrepresent what Noble Ali said, when the major heart of this movement is the enforcement of the Constitution for the United States, i.e. which comes from Muslim law, which recently, in recent years, Barack H. Obama exposed to you when he went to Egypt. And this is back because all of them know that the legitimate republic government at North America is really the Moorish government. Are we clear? That's been overthrown. So don't be in your mind disconnected from quote unquote the legitimate government. Are we clear? The problem that you have and that we all have been suffering is the operations of the illegitimate or de facto governing body of Europeans under the Jesuit order of the Roman Curia that had been power operating since around 1861. Are we clear? In other words, that's when they established, kind of like you say, semi-officially the overthrow. And this is why those of you who know the history are aware of the fact that Abraham Lincoln was the last lawful president operating under the jurisdiction of the Republic, in harmony with and in support of the treaty and the Constitution. Since Abraham Lincoln, the treaty, which is Constitution 2, was pushed aside, and the Republic was set into sleep, and they set up a kingship oligarchy and just didn't make it public and maintained the seats, and that's known as the U.S. democracy. And this is why most people to this day think that the government that's supposed to be operating at North America is a democracy, when actually that's the fraud operation of the Jesuit order through the Circle Church of the Chancery of England under the crown operations of the Attorneys. Contrary to the original article of Amendment 13, the Nobility Clause, etc., which is why that's not exposed to the masses. And so when you get into that, logically, you're going to teach history and civics, and logically, them same people, Grand Sheiks and people who keep telling people that we're out to lunch, they will never get into that information because it will expose them too as being part of your problem. So when you see that division, understand, I'm telling you what the root of it is. So when you think that just because you hear them talking a different line that they don't know this information, they do. It's not in their political interest, because most of them are enemies to Prophet Noble, even though they always boast in his name. Now for those, and write this down, particularly for those of you who are new to coming in here, and also to remind you scholars who also know, so that you can have reference points. In your Circle 7 Quran, I want you to read thoroughly and break down for yourself chapter 29. That's called Magistrate and Subject. Chapter 29. I want you to read thoroughly and break down. I don't mean just read it and then say, oh, you know it. I want you to analyze it. Take your paragraphs, make footnotes. Take it from the same training that you had not lately in school, because they don't do it anymore, when they used to have, where they had the children, were training them to pay attention to details, and so they had them do what is called book reports. And they graded them on it. They don't do that anymore. Now, so do this literature the same way. So do chapter 29 and break down the paragraphs and then break down sentences and make notes for yourself. Are we clear? Then take the divine warning by the prophet for the nations. You'll find that in the book they call the literature that they will dispense in the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, and also in some Moorish Science temples of America. And then also look at the prophet's message, historical message to America, and break that down the same way. And for people who don't have what you call a solid scholarly background, if you study those unbiased, make notes, you'll know who's been supporting the Prophet's program and who has not been. Meaning pretty much that will tell you what the program is. Other information is available to you. Also for those, and you have to get amongst a handful of Moors, because most of them will not expose it to you. And there's a letter that was written a month or two before they murdered the Prophet, and it's called To Be Read Before Every Meeting. And that's that letter of controversy that most of the people in the temple pretend that they don't know about. And you take that word pretend, put it in capital letters, and make it a neon sign. Pretend they don't know about it. And they will not read that in their temples. If you think they love the Prophet, well, you start studying the Prophet's literature and then start looking at what they're doing, then read the Prophet's literature, then look what they're doing, look what they're not doing, and I won't tell you anything. And of course, you know, a lot of them pissed off with me because the deal of it is I can travel the country and I can call people in a small meeting and get more than what most of them can do in two club meetings. even our small groups are usually bigger than theirs. And rather than take advantage of the opportunity to start teaching the people, they'll condemn me or try to misrepresent what we're presenting to the people. Are we clear? Because we don't try to enslave the people. Are we clear? So the other deal, now when you read them yourself also, they've been blocking a lot of information. But look up FBI infiltration papers on the Moorish Science Temple of America, and you'll find a lot of redacted information, right? But even with the redactions, you can see how they strategized, to create a lot of divisions that you see. All right, and you'll begin to understand why some brothers and sisters who are can be safely said to be actually COINTELPRO operatives will make videos condemning what we're teaching and saying that we don't know the Moorish Divine National Movement, or that we're mixing European sovereignty with the Moorish movement, which is BS. And you'll see why they're doing what they're doing. See, I want to tell you, you'll see it yourself. Are we clear? And this is also to save a lot of you from misery of getting knocked off the boat before you really realize what you got. Because a lot of times if they get you discouraged, you'll say, oh man, I don't want to be bothered with that stuff. There's a bunch of confusion and stuff. And the real deal is the restoration of your estate. It's not selling you some belief. Are we clear? Is the issue is the restoration of your lost estate. Are we clear? And your estate is much, matter of fact, I'm glad to hear, give him the mic. Can you go into law book and read estate, please? And read into the mic loudly and clearly. Who has 4th edition black laws? I don't think we have one here. Anybody have it in your stock?
Yeah.
If you've carried it? Because you usually have it.
Yeah, you said estate?
No, we don't have the 4th. No, we want it from the law book.
Oh yeah, this is no, this is constitutional law. It's not.
Well, you can do that. Well, but the deal of this, from what you know, talk estate. Yeah. Black's Law 4th edition, estate.
Yeah, we're coming
I
like
got the 3rd edition.
Huh?
I got the 3rd edition.
Oh, that's sufficient. Can we have it for a minute?
Yeah, it's right here.
The brother's going to share with us 3rd edition. Now, those of you who are scholars also know 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are your power. Now the others you use for adjusted interjections, the legal terms, etc. But if you're going to deal with scholarship, 4th on backwards. Are we clear? Because from the 5th edition out, they start watering it down because you started reading. Are we clear? And the other deal is suggestion to you too, brother. That's good. Although soft cover, that's for your pocket. Get yourself a hardcover.
Okay.
All right.
There
was scholar hardcover. Convenient in the car. You drink coffee. Scholar hardcover. Okay. Go ahead, good brother.
All right, estate, the interest, which...
No, because remember they're listening to Honduras, China, Belize, Japan, not just here. So always make your reference so they'll have reference, because we want the people to have reference, because some of the things that I've said tonight, I'm saying it because they put out their minions to try to counter us. Some of them are jealous because the House of Reawakening Minds has become popular around the world. And rather than help develop the people, they want to fight us as if we're competing with them when we're not competing with anyone, if you get the point. But they're competing, and the problem that many of them have, they're not being able to call the people And so they look at us as taking people from them type thing, which is really not what's going on. We teach people. We don't promote beliefs and we don't promote followership. They do. And so to that degree, it appears to be conflict of interest. Are we clear? And so people who don't know look at that confusion and think the Moors are divided, but it's not so much that. What you have people that are in this movement for political agenda and for power positions, where we at the House of Reawakening Minds, and we're not patting ourselves on the shoulders, just what we do. And Roundtable, we exist to liberate people. We're not here to enslave people. We're not here to create followers. We're not here promoting belief systems. We're here promoting science, knowledge. Are we clear? So when you see that conflict, understand that that's where they're sensitive, and they figure by the people not really knowing these things that they can play you against each other while you're still what you call green behind the ears. So I'm just letting you know, so when you see those dynamics taking place, I'm telling you what it is so you can see for yourself. But I also gave you references of reading material for Noble Ali so you can see for yourself that they are not carrying out the program. I don't care what they tell you. But go ahead, good brother.
Islam. This is Black's Law 4th edition online version. This is estate, the interest which anyone has in lands or in any other subject of property. Okay, then it has N.C. Morford versus Lee Frank, 26 Cal, that's case law. Robertson versus Van Cleve, another case law. An estate in lands, tenements, and hereditaments signifies such interest as the tenant has therein. The condition of circumstance in which the owner stands with regard to his property. Then it has more case law. In this sense, estate is constantly used in conveyances in connection with the words right, title, and interest, and is in a great degree synonymous with all of them.
Now I want you all to pay attention to these words, because I want you to understand exactly what estate is. And 9 times out of 10, when you really comprehend what estate includes, you'll discover that your concepts of what you think that word means is very restricted, and that it's actually far broader than the average person is aware of. And you need to become quite aware of the broad scope that it actually covers. So please pay attention to all the words. Also, I feel free to, after you read it again, to dispense or to make commentary.
So the degree, quantity, nature, and extent of interest which a person has in real property is usually referred to an estate, and it varies from absolute ownership down to naked possession. That's Nicholas Corporation versus Ferguson. In another sense, estate designates the property, real or personal, in which one has a right of, or interest. The subject matter of ownership, the corpus of property, thus we speak of a valuable estate, all my estate, separate estate, trust estate, etc. This also is its meaning in the classification of property into real estate and personal estate, and that's another case law, Connerton versus Cannon. Okay, and so when we say
go on, because I want you to go to the part where it also means status.
Right, that's what I was getting to.
Right.
So okay. There's no legal entity as an quote-unquote estate, Hanson versus Stanton. It's a convenient phrase to identify the subject of litigation in the orphans court, so make note of that.
Now notice that orphans court, like when people are coming into what they're calling a court, which is actually an auction venue of commerce, because it's feudal, not republic, that persons who are declared minority are actually going to orphans court. This is the reason why they refer to as wards of the state, and usually when they open their mouths, they start talking over you because you're considered dead. I'm just telling you that, so that you can understand processes that you're looking at that you may not have recognized. And this is back to what Tamara was saying to you, nationalize. It means more than what you think it means on the surface. You know, but continue, please.
Okay, orphans court and in proceedings in rem, and that's very important. In rem, your in rem status, in rem meaning legally bounding against the entire world. So you should never, when you're at the tribunals, give up your in rem status, because your status equals your estate. And since you are the national of the land, the heir to the land, you should always be in proper person. Okay, so whenever you speak, the magistrate or administrative clerk has no right or claim over your estate, and you should always make that known for the record.
Yes.
So it says, in rem, it may be treated as harmless, okay, superfluity, but as a designation of a party to be served with a writ. It is unknown to the law. It cannot be made the plaintiff in an action, as it is not a person and cannot sue or be sued. In Ray, Harrisburg Trust Company, the word estate is a word of the greatest extension and comprehends every species of property, real and personal. It describes both the corpus and the extent of interest. That's Deere versus Tucker. First used in some connections, it signifies everything of which riches or fortune may consist. Estate comprehends everything a man owns, real and personal, and ought not to be limited in its construction unless connected with some other word which must necessarily have that effect. It means ordinarily the whole of the property owned by anyone, the realty as well as the personality. So,
and I want to interject. This is why, like for instance, like if you have persons who, the living man or woman that ceases to use their body, and that people call death, that they make the transition. And if someone has a claim while they sue their estate, because you're dealing with inheritances. And this is back to having a comprehension of how their human trafficking system works because they're doing human trafficking, their operation being as futile is actually human trafficking. And that's why all of their operations are commercial. They'll even call crimes commercial. Everything is commercial because remember that they're feudalists who have taken over the receipts of the republic and are pretending to be legitimate government. This is where your problems have their root. This is why you must understand that Europeans are not Americans. Europeans are not white people. You don't deal with them from a perspective of what the complexion of their skin is or what they are. They are foreigners. They are aliens forever. Once they get you tricked in talking about that they're Americans with a different complexion, at that time you've given up your birthright. You know, so there's a lot of concepts that you must get clear in your head as to why you've been economically strapped. How they've been robbing your communities, how they've been robbing land that should have been coming down to you. There's not a person living in this room that should be poor. Not a one. You're poor because these foreign Europeans have been living off your virtues. They've been robbing your estate. And this is the Masonic secret, the greater part that they really don't want you to deal with. Are we clear? And therefore, they also don't want you to know government structure and civics, so you don't know how to regulate or to administer your estate. That's on multiple levels. You're dealing with all hereditaments, corporal and incorporeal. You're dealing with lands, accoutrements, the damn trees, the grass that's on it, the streams of water that run. How in any imaginary mind were you ever tricked into thinking that the foreign European colonists own land here in America.
Say that again.
Not on.
How did you ever allow yourself to get tricked into believing that any foreign, alien, European, that was often called paleface, and that's not a negative, do you understand? Any of these Germanic tribes who have been robbing you can own anything on the land called America, except that you've fallen under the spell of unum sanctum. Are we clear? This is also why they put their name on you, so that whatever you bought or sold in the mark or the number of their name actually cedes to them under the rule of Sister Q trust law. Sister Q v trust law. Are we clear? Let me finish. We'll get to you, good brother.
And that's why they use their private reserve fractional banking system against the people to escheat the estate. And when you claim and cling to those names and principles that deluded slavery, you give up your MREM status, and it makes it easy for them to escheat the estate, and then we pass that down through generations.
And write that down. It's cheap. It's cheap. Because that's what be going on.
Yes.
Yes. Now, the very nature, just like being women, you all already know. And see, we got to get out of this competing mentality that the European has built or groomed the people in. And you know daggone well, as your sons, right? So your husband is still your son, boyfriend still your son, brother still your son, cousin still your son. Let's get over it.
We feel it.
You got to look at things realistic. You got to look at things realistic, honestly. See, because it's a little humor in it, but it's the absolute truth. And until we start dealing with the truth in nature, we will not fix problems. Are we clear? Yeah. And so the ego must be removed, and you must study nature for what she really is. You violate her, she doesn't sit around playing games with you. She just starts making you disappear. It's called extinction. Any living thing that keeps living or evolving out of its nature or purpose is on a road to extinction. This is another reason the appeal. Because if you're blind, even though it's in your face, you may not see all the evidence that is showing you. And these people don't recognize that they're on a road of extinction in their so-called black culture. And so if we don't kill it, it will kill you. Are we clear? Now, the same way, some of you who are elders, to some degree, now you're a young elder, and she's a young elder. I'm an old elder, whatever. So you have reference. You know what I'm saying? Because you have reference. You already know the nature, because we lost it actually about 4 or 5 generations ago, right? No matter what the so-called economic status was, it was not unnatural or unusual for the man, even though we were still getting messed up, meaning that we're still falling into dead culture. However, it was not unusual for, say, a man, he going to work, whatever his job may be, he'll come home, he'll take 15 notes for himself and put the rest of it on the table, knowing that you're going to run the house. That's government. Why is that done? Because that's harmonic with nature. Now, sons, me and myself, being a son. Now, I have multiple skills. I can sew, I can cook, I can fix cars, I can build, I can fix anything in the house. Basically, and I can do all of them goodly.
Well.
However, I know me as a man, being a man, and I understand the nature of me. I can take little stuff and make gloriously beautiful things out of it. But frankly, I sit on the couch and don't care. Shirts over there and AL sleeping chair, like that white type thing, whatever. Now that's the nature of us. And it's not that we don't care, it's that we're more mechanical. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So, you know, like you, we can do the popcorn and juice and a little bit of sports and have some beat up car and long as it runs good, we cool, and hey, let's get a wheelie and all this stuff. Then women come around, you get mags, you want to shine it and stuff like that. Other than that, you wouldn't even care. So there's a kind of this balance type thing. And it's not that we do that as a regular thing, but that's more like where we at. Because we pretty much stay boys, truthfully. You know, we just fake it when sisters come around. We, you know, raise the eyebrow type thing and, you know, do this imagery, but y'all don't be around, please. We just boys, we just get bigger, you know, and we stay that way. And women can't balance us out, because women straighten us up. You know, like you women come, you know, now you straightening up everything, and you know, you have curtains and stuff. You know, you be having these old broken blinds. You don't even care. Not that you don't care, but you don't care. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Not that serious.
Now, point that I'm making to you, and that's not putting us down. We're just coming down to earth. Women run things; they're just not credited for it because of the daily culture. Dr. Naila, I want you to get them like, go ahead.
It's in line with what you're saying. I'm always reminded that you know, there are some good things in the Bible that we can go back and refer to, and most people know this scripture. They've heard it on Mother's Day and so forth. But can I read?
Yes, please do.
Proverbs 31. It says, who can find, verse 10, who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. Now here's the part I like. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. So she can sew, she can make stuff. She's like merchant ships. She bringeth her food from afar. She's out there, you know, bringing in what they need to sustain them, sustenance. She rises also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household and a portion to her maidens. She considereth a field, here's the land, and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands she planteth the vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. So she's making wool and fabric. Mm-hmm. She stretches out her hand to the poor, yea, she reaches forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Now here's her husband. Her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchant. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children arise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praiseth her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Stop there. If you just go back and look at the various things that this scripture says, the woman, she's doing everything from raising the cattle, buying the land. She's governing everything, and her husband is just at the gate.
She's a protector.
Absolutely.
And don't get it twisted. You know, and now, for those of you who know the Quran, you can even recognize that in the Quran. Yeah. You know, even when we do the matrimony obligation, you know, the chapters that you read, you'll see the harmonics with that, because those are ancient principles. You know what I mean? Now, the deal of it is, one of the strategies that the Europeans have used in the Christian black codes that they've imposed on us, they've reversed the roles.
Absolutely.
And so women psychologically not understanding, and the sons who are raised by women, You know, they start this competition with each other, and actually most women run their men out.
Correct.
And they get confused, think their men are running after somebody else. They're really running away from her. No, I'm telling you the truth. Most men won't admit it. And then a lot of women who really don't know the culture be trying to compete with other women who have long hair or something like that, because they be thinking that their sons is running after them. No, they usually run from that dead culture that our women are putting us through. And we don't know that that's not our culture. Do you understand? And nobody wants to address it. It's sensitive, and nobody wants to address it. And then men aren't honest. Most time when men are honest is when they're in the barbershop. Now I'm also a barber, so I'm also a psychologist, so I already know the deal. You know, so men will say things in the barber shop that they'll never say anywhere else. Directly and indirectly. You know, but men most of the time, because of pride and because of the way we've been raised, usually don't admit our tears. We usually cry alone. You know, and then come out into the world, this image that we expect the world to see. And so because we don't really talk, women talk more, if you know, more openly. However, the real problems with us need to be brought more in the open, and men need not be threatened of their masculinity and their weaknesses, and admit them. Doesn't mean that you're weak. You need to understand the nature of things. You know, now the problem that most of us have is many of the women have subconsciously, over generations, been living under the Christian black codes and actually are psychologically destroying their own families or emasculating their men and running them out and thinking something wrong or that, and then we start thinking we don't love each other and really we're under mind control. So those things we must start clearing up and getting out of our culture. And this is where it says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. There's on multiple levels that we really need to fix this thing. And part of the difficulty is people's pride and egos, and they're not willing to move them out of the way and look at things for what they actually are. But the point that I want to make to you, for the encouragement of both the sons and the mothers, is for women to recognize that government is their nature. It's not something that needs to be, it's not some complicated thing. And when you study nationhood on the planet, nations are run just like matriarchies. Even if a man, the son, is, say, the prime minister or the president, it's really the women that's always running everything. It's just that men is your figure, you know, so like, women need to understand this. No different than if you're studying a beehive, right? While the queen is rarely seen, there's only one throne in a beehive, and that's the queen's throne. There ain't no king's throne in there, so you talk in nature. But she gives birth to many, right? And they'll take, say, chosen female, because all the eggs are female, so let's get that out of the way from the door. And they will systematically feed those particular chosen eggs what is known as royal jelly. This will be your highest grade of honeys, right? And they dance around them. So when you're looking at dances in ancient Asia and Africa, those ritual dances, those fertility dances, they're based in nature, if you understand. And then they prepare these females for reproduction, and these females become what they call drones, i.e. they become males. And they go bumping off everybody and making more people, more bees. But they start off as females. No different than in the womb of a woman, all eggs are female. And this is why women traditionally, even by the nature of themselves, have a tendency to spoil their sons more than their daughters, irregardless of age. Because psychologically, women know that we're halfway out to lunch. Not that we're, you got the Y chromosome, you got the X, type thing. And you already know, I'll tell you this. Women worry about their sons more with some other woman's daughter screwing him up. Outside of that, you supposed to be all this. Not really. Yeah. They already know that woman's gonna kick his ass. He swear he got this shit going. That's why they say ain't nothing worse than a woman scorn. She cold once she love you. You mess up. That little woman put you through some stuff that you didn't understand. But that's the nature of things. No, we're talking nature. Let's get real. We're talking nature. But we're getting you to look at it, not, it's a little humorous, but it's real. If you study nature, you can see it. It's never absent from you. It's just that it doesn't match our belief systems that we've adopted in the name of religion that counters nature. And we have not looked at that. Nobody will bring it to your attention because they don't want to spoil the clubs. Because the clubs are mind control systems. Keeps the sheeple in order for the uses of the priesthood. Not in order for nature, for the usage of the priesthood. You must know the difference. Now, when a man, in the terms, so we like to sing these kind of songs, when a man loves a woman, that type down here. Well, we always sing these love songs, almost love songs, lost love songs, but we like to do this stuff. But the deal of it is, when a man really loves a woman, he'll do anything for her, including give his life, because that's his nature. They won't always admit it. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? This is why when a man really loves a woman, and if she breaks him, that's why most of them are broke. Usually, some of them forever. They become jaded forever. If they really love a woman and she breaks him, he's done. He's probably no good for no other woman. Usually. Now, most men won't admit that. That's true. You understand what I'm saying? So it's important for us to treat each other well so that we don't set generations afoot that's destructive. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? But because of training and the way that we've been trained to usury, do you understand what I'm saying to you? We're actually destroying ourselves thinking that we're just doing personal ego things or whatever, however you want to put it. So we got to get back to nature to fix things. Are we clear? Get back to truth of culture. Go ahead, Tamara. Give her the mic. I'll get to you too, brother. I didn't forget you.
Yes, several days ago, I was playing chess, and it really dawned on me the power of that game and how it really balances both sides, the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. And what really stood out the most was the movement of the queen. How the queen had such unlimited, such fluency, on the board. And the king was pretty much in a stationary position, relying on this queen to hold down the fort.
Yeah, and even though you're protecting the king,
right?
Trying to lock him, trying to block him, trying to angles and all this stuff.
Exactly.
The real deal is 90% of the time, or maybe more, if someone loses the queen in the game, they'll lose the game.
Exactly.
Most of the time. Mm-hmm. Very rarely do they get out of it. Mm-hmm. If they get that queen, you're done. And so, but it's also dealing with the checkerboard,
exactly.
Anything, higher self, lower self, the squares, etc. Because it is based in that too. But it's still dealing with nature.
Exactly.
The real power, the issue is checkmating the king. But the real deal is, usually if you got that queen, you can be in a totally adverse condition and come out of it.
Exactly.
But usually if she's gone, he's gone. He's done.
Yeah, you know.
You got to be a real mastermind once they take that queen to save that king. I don't care what you got.
You know, it just brought to memory when my mother would always tell us, as a young lady, a woman can build a house or she can tear a house down.
This is why it's important for women to know herself, the applied science of the number 9. That's the real culture. And understand that the advantage that European women have, you know, like you got the Daughters of the American Revolution, right here in Washington, D.C.?
That's right.
One of the keys to them beating you up is that they know your science.
And in Connecticut.
And they actually use it against you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is why they'll have like sisters who can cook there and sweep the floor and stuff, but they can't be daughters of the American Revolution. Only European women. You know, and you notice how of all the buildings in Washington, it's the only building with marble building and marble steps too.
That's right.
Everything is marble. And then you see Dolly Madison's room, and they have her turban. She's a little woman. You know, have her turban. She wouldn't go out without her turban. You know, she's European, but remember, the Daughters of the American Revolution are European women who can trace their lineage back to the Moorish harems. You know, so the Asiatic woman can't be a member of the Dar. And also the Dar which I gave you that citizens.
Yes, I have it. Actually, I have copies of the entire book.
That's Moorish culture. If you get the whole point, that's civics. And that manual is used for people to take tests on citizenship. So citizen in a nation state is child to the mother. So you need to understand this, what civics actually is. And so if you're in harmony with nature, none of that stuff is hard to understand. Government operations is not hard to understand. What makes it hard to understand is if you're operating with a patriarchal mind taught from the Romans under the dogma systems of religion. That is actually against nature, and you be thinking it's for God, no, it's for mind control. Are we clear? Okay. So when you get the knowledge, you know, you want to have a clear and honest mind. You don't want to have a dirty mind or unclean thoughts. Are we clear? Because you don't want to contaminate nature. And also, when a woman knows herself, she uses a knowledge of her position of physical life when her mother seeded her, and also when her mate seeded, and if they're harmonic, and also choose the cycle when she wants to bring. That's really birth control. And then she would bring to the family the champions that are needed. And this is also why women with their sons are also called the miracle birth. The miracle birth really implies that she's taken her daughter, a reflection of herself, and made a son out of her. This is why you see the symbol of Set and Horus, and she's proudly holding her son, you know, because it's really herself made into a drone. If you get the point. For what? For the propagation of the race. And so she's protected of her sons because this is her bloodline. She's sending him out to electrify other eggs. And so the women logically want to be protective of their family line. You see? And now the problem we have when women get into this fighting mentality, see, queens will send her sons out to go take other queen's stuff. This is war. But she's really in the background. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So you need to understand how things have been really working on this planet, because you have to fix this thing. Don't get confused because the way you've been trained in dogma systems called religion, and keep taking a back seat, thinking that, you know, rulership is a man-son thing. Man is the species. It's your responsibility. Because most of us is messed up because you messed us up. And that's not blaming, that's just telling you how nature works. So if you lack knowledge, what you put out into the world, that's your product. You must start taking responsibility. You know, and that doesn't make you small. It doesn't make you a negative. It makes you responsible. Be responsible. And stop looking for outside God images to fix this thing, because they ain't gonna fix shit. You gotta fix it. You know, but you gotta know how nature works. Study yourselves. Know yourself. And know what you put on this earth. You know, in some cultures, ancient, when they had, sons that came out there doing weird and crazy shit to the world, they'll come look for that woman to take her out for bringing that shit on the planet. Well, that's real, but you need to understand what that really means. So you need to know the power of the womb and the responsibilities that go with it.
Well, that's it. That's in the Iroquois Constitution.
Iroquois
Constitution, where it states when a son is in dishonor, such as he may kill someone else, the entire woman heritage must be eliminated.
Yeah. If you understand it, it's dealing with, on the surface, based on what we think we understand, that looks like cruel, but what it is preserving civilization.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Now, of course, with the Romans, one of the ways that they built up their wealth was by falsely accusing women of negatives and stealing their estates, and then dividing it between the lords, the feudal lords, and the church. That's how the church got their wealth. You know what I mean? And this is why, particularly in North America, they maintain all over North America cities in their original format of Salam. They'll just say Salem.
Right.
And anywhere where it's Salem, that they still maintain the names of the attributes of the areas, guarantee you they've murdered a lot of women. Because that's how the church got their wealth. So they see you right. Because remember that in the culture, in the true culture, all inheritances come through women. So the priest will come around and say, oh, she's a witch. Really means wise women, which means you know too damn much. And you didn't fall to the Roman order. You ain't serving the popes of Rome. And then they'll take and torture you. And one of the favorite things would do to put you on a fulcrum, take you to the lake, and keep dipping you in the water. That's where they get waterboarding from. And then make you confess that you got a devil, and of course, what choice do you have? What the hell? Then they beat you up, and they took your turban, and turned around, and then tied a knot in the front. This is why they're doing the Aunt Jemima's pancake thing.
Right.
That's symbolic, where they tying down the pineal gland. That's a symbolic. Take your turban and tie the knot here, implying shutting down the pineal gland. And then they torture you to make you confess, and then they kill you anyway, and then they divide the state between the church and the feudal lord of the area. And so when people see all these grand churches and all this wealth, they don't know they got that from you, from the women. And then the women, over periods of time, intimidated and also trying to save some of their sons and stuff. You know, we start dividing and stuff, so or trying to act like they don't care in order to save their sons. This is why a lot of men who don't really understand the world history think that some of our women don't love us. And all this stuff is mental warfare, psychic attacks. And so we got to know the history, because we got to fix this stuff so that we don't get taken out. You know, and not to talk about it is not realistic, because it's being used against you right now and it's being accelerated.
That's right.
You understand? Again, while we're doing this lesson. You know, so we have to start being honest. And we have to start removing our egos and do what we do for the sake of humanity. And so the things and the secrets that have been held back must be exposed. Are we clear? Are we clear?
Clear.
Come on with your question, good brother. Get the brother a mic.
just wanted you to expound on two things for me.
Say it again.
I just wanted you to expound on.
Say the mic.
I just wanted you to expound on two things that I was going to read. Two short things. Let me see. Given the private secret trust of the private central banks are created a false presumption when a man or woman makes clear their live-born record and claim over their own name, body, mind, and soul. Any such trust-based or such false presumption seeks to have property than another. Any administrator or executive that refuses to immediately dissolve the subsequent trust upon a person establishing their status and competency is guilty of fraud and fundamental breach of their fiduciary duties, requiring their immediate removal and punishment.
Yeah, now that's fundamental. Now, anytime that you're interchanging, and this is not unlike our conversations in the nature of them, getting us into the knowledge concept. We will look at different, what you call legal strategies to deal with the jurisdictional claims made by the administrative clerks.
Yeah.
And it's also encouraged by them for us to do that, so they can play cards with us. But you must understand that you're always dealing with trust law, and that they are not judges; they are administrative clerks acting as operations. And though we can look at case law and stuff like that as supports in our argument, which you can do, you want not to ever forget what's really going on there. And this is again why we keep reminding people from a strategic point of view why Dwight D. Eisenhower shut down consular court in '54. And also when people begin to have some understanding about the private commercial paper operations of fiat under the Jesuit order, and they usually refer to Jekyll Island and Woodrow Wilson, hardly anybody ever talks about the Dwight D. Eisenhower, the German Dutchman, and the relinquishment of jurisdiction at Morocco while actually not exercising it. Stated and then not exercised. And then to shut down logically the consular court, and then promote their Negro, so-called Christian Negro civil rights marching guys, heavily started since '54 or '55. That looks like it's working in our interest when it really is creating a false venue so that the injuries that would come to us, we would seek remedy in a system that we assume to be courts when they're really not courts. They're actually human trafficking venues. Now, even though the breach of the Republic's Constitution was 1861, March the 27th, you know, one of the things or the strategies that they've used is slow walking. And this is again why I remind us, you know, and because most people, when generations pass, most people don't see multifaceted. So like some people can't chew gum and jump rope. Let's see, you got some gum back there, bro. But yeah, for those who can, and you got to get back to cleaning your mind and getting back to the capacity to look at things on multiple levels clearly, and it's sometimes called thinking on your feet.
Yep. Right.
So you got to remember why no one emphasizes Dwight D. Eisenhower and everybody puts emphasis on Jekyll Island. when you find out the breaches of constitutional principle, everybody talks about Jekyll Island. Nobody emphasizes the Dwight D. Eisenhower, the relinquishing of jurisdiction at Morocco, and the 141, 142, 143, etc., dealing with both criminal and civil matters and persons and property. Which of course why I did it in the treaty book, to remind people, knowing the compromise amongst not just the Europeans, but they have a strategy, their war strategy, but the compromise of people among us who know this and won't talk about it. But go ahead, good brother.
And that's why Article 3, Section 3, because it's like you said, it's multifaceted layers where one end, they're breaching so many things, but then we're breaching by being in dishonor as well. I'm going to read real quick, Article 3, Section 30. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying wars against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless, here's the qualifications, on the testimony of 2 witnesses of the same overt act or on confession in open court. So those are the 2 qualifications of treason. Then the Congress shall have power to declare punishment of treason, but no attainder of treason shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture except during the life of the person attainted. And so you see those bills of attainder that corrupts our bloodline, we also give way to those bills of attainder when we tacitly acquiesce, don't rebut them, and we actually, just calling it what it is, we love Charles Darwin and his theory of survival of the fittest and competition, and we want to continue to use those bills of attainders to corrupt our bloodline instead of standing on nationality and principles.
Now you understand why Giraldi said we don't seek to marry into the pale-skinned nations of Europe. What he's talking about is not a rejection of them necessarily in the species of the mankind principle, in so much as it is the corruption of blood because they've been stealing your estate.
That's right.
So a lot of people try to twist that into, we don't like Europeans type thing. It's not true. It's an issue of estate. Which is again why, from their position, from a war perspective, it's important for them to pay Negro marching leader guys to keep us calling ourselves people of color, to keep calling ourselves colored people, to keep calling ourselves Negro, black, and colored, and make the children think it's African identity.
African American.
Because that is the support of the, what you call, is cheating of the estate. And logically, if the people don't know the history and don't know jurisprudence, they don't make those connections because no one's teaching them. So they be thinking it's just opinion of what you want to call yourself, not knowing that they're giving up their estate. Then they're accused of consent. And this is not unlike our conversation of understanding really what's going on in them venues. So we want to get clear not to call them so-called courts,
right,
which is what they are, but that's a wrong statement.
Human trafficking.
They are auction venues.
Auction venues.
Commercial auction venues under feudal law, administered by auctioneers known as administrative clerks.
Wow.
Members of the Barristers Association under the secret Treaty of Verona, in service to the Circle Church, to which they have allegiance. That's what's going on. All operations are under Sister-Q v. Trust Law. When we're starting to, getting our people involved in enforcing the Constitution, you must understand and know why you're judged. You're not just taking on some title. You're exercising your right, your obligation to yourself. Failure to do so is a waiver, which they will accept. And then they start executing as what? FOFR over your estate. It ain't racism. And if you can keep your head cleared, you can even look at the semantics that they're doing and see exactly what they're doing. Problem. You have to develop the level of comprehension and knowledge to be able to translate and transmit this knowledge to the average person.
That's right.
You got a lot of BS to move out the way before you can get there, because it's very simple. However, with the bullshit belief systems that they got, they're mentally blocked.
That's right.
They are mentally blocked because they think it came from Jesus, God, Allah, Moses, Muhammad. Well, Rome was wise, and they understood that the day would come that you would start waking up. And so they put these things in place. But anyway, for those of you who are listening, formulate your questions, and forward them, what they're going to do anyway. I ain't going to tell you to do it, but I already know you're going to do it. Dr. G, you want to hit her with she's burdened, she's national secretary, whether she like it or not, so like, take thing, you being like, the burden, it's like a default thing. But forward your questions, and a lot of times we know that some things is necessary for us to be redundant with, because we need to get these things clear to a lot of people. Those of you who have been around know that we can get into a lot of subject matter that is very, very interesting. But there's no need to do that with people who don't have a foundation. You're not helping people by loading them down with data when they don't understand that status is the beginning of all of it. Give her the mic for a minute.
Islam, as we're getting ready to wrap up, Sister Tamara and I were having a conversation earlier today, and since we're speaking to this group and universally to thousands, I know eventually, I just want to say that I was listening to a program overnight, and Sister Tamara and I were talking about the fact that a lot of times we don't focus on things that are very significant. And a lot of people I know have heard about the 5G situation that is upon us and coming to a town near you. But I was listening to a program last night, and it's very important that that becomes one of our agenda items to come against this 5G proliferation, because of the fact that it's already proven that it causes any place they put the towers, there's an increase in the cancers rate. There's also an increase, the people who work on the towers, it's a high rate of suicide amongst the people actually erecting and working on the 5G towers, because apparently the waves that are being transmitted from 5G have an effect on one's circadian rhythm. And when your circadian rhythm is affected, it's the thing that your body knows when it's nighttime, and so at nighttime it knows to do a certain thing versus daytime hours. Well, 5G interferes with your circadian rhythm, and it makes your body think it's daytime when it should be nighttime, and so your body's doing in the daytime, in the nighttime what it does in the day, and not taking the nighttime, which is a reparative time, to do what it should do. So people are becoming...
It acts like jet lag.
Well, okay, and the other thing that I found out, and many of us are guilty of this, and myself included, I'm listening to this expert, he said, when you look at your cell phone, because we're talking about the blue rays, when you look at that TV right there is that blue light, anything that has a blue light, I bought something that you can put over the various, like a black dot or squares and rectangles to put over things, because when you look at your cell phone, say that's the last thing you look at before you go to sleep at night, it resets your circadian rhythm, and even though you think you're sleeping, you are sleeping, but your body thinks it's awake. So the things that should be happening at night, so these are the kinds of things that we don't hear about a lot. So I'm just appealing to us, you know what I mean? We're all in our cell phones and so forth, but we don't realize that with 5G and even with the 4G, just to be the last thing, and the blue light, the level of whatever ultraviolet or whatever is coming through, it affects your look up circadian rhythm, and it's going to get worse. Some countries have banned it, and I think they said the FTC or something, one of these places here in the U.S. that has decided that no, you can't fight this. They're going to put it up anyway, while some countries are literally, working to ban it. And we need to work to make sure that they don't use it as yet another means of, extermination.
But you already know that's why.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the thing we can do is to turn these things down and not, change the lighting on your cell phone and so forth. Of course, get your orgonite, because we're talking about electromagnetic frequencies and so forth. But I just wanted to say that I'm listening to this like 2 o'clock in the morning when I should have been asleep, but maybe my circadian rhythm was off. Anyhow, but I'm just saying we don't have to continue in this, and I want to make sure that we put this on as an agenda item for us too. It's just as important as a lot of other things we think are important. This is important because if you're not going to be around here, if these things are going to take us out, then we can't fight this battle. We can't, be a part of this Moorish Divine National Movement if we're all sick and diseased of the things we think are communications, which I say in closing, raise your vibrations, change what you're eating, and we can go back to communicating the way our ancestors did, mind to mind.
Islam.
Yield the floor.
Excuse me, I was just turning my thing down. I want to remind you all, those who are listening, and I know we have people who are listening in other jurisdictions. We appreciate your supports and your help, etc., for helping to maintain, keeping the House of Reawakening Minds open, and trust that you will maintain those supports. For those of you listening, we have books over here by Abdullah Talib Mosey Bey. We also have a new book coming out within a week or so, which will be available. All right, let's come on up here. Islam. I got this.
All right, this is the
front.
This is the front cover. So I'm gonna go back up. And this is the size: 5.5 by 8.5. All right, both sizes the size as you see it: 5.5 by 8.5. How Venus and Moon rules. Thanks to Tamara for the title, book cover title. This book will be available. It's available now on the website, moorsandmainstreet.org. It's coming in the mail Tuesday. All right.
So by just reading the title, does this mean that this book is going to discuss how the moon rules over our menstrual cycles?
What I go into this book is show how the moon and Venus, how we develop calendar systems.
Okay.
All right. And there's the developing system of calculating the moon cycle, calculating the Venus cycle for agricultural purpose.
Okay.
All right, so I focus more on that aspect of it, and showing that 5-pointed star, the epistemology of the 5-pointed star is not that much flat. It's in the sky. It's in the sky.
What's the time?
There's every 584 days. There's 584 day Venus-Earth conjunction, and 8 Earth years and 13 Venus years. That's the epistemology of the 5-pointed star.
Yeah.
It's the cosmological cycle. So I go into that. The Easter, I explain what Easter is. Easter is the heliacal rising of Venus, which is between mid-March and mid-April. And that brought about the rain season. The calendar. The Venus calendar is a very meticulous and ancient calendar that the Mayans have developed that calendar to calculate Venus to know when to plant and harvest. But you have to plant at a certain time so you know when to calculate that rain is coming. I go into that. This is the aspect of the book. All right. So and then the devil is just simply a distortion of an ordinary book. That's all it is.
And a fiction created by the priesthood for control purposes.
But it was but it was created from a goat, though.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, it wasn't created out of thin air.
Right.
The devil, that image, that wasn't created out of thin air. It gets created from an ordinary goat. They took an ordinary goat and made it gory. Why? The goat is an ancient symbol of fertility.
Yes.
Representing the moon because of the crescent-shaped horns. So once again, the devil's not some creation out of thin air. It's a distortion of the goat. That's it.
Yes.
Distortion of the goat. I love the devil. I love the moon. I'm saying it that way to remove the fear. The fear.
And the misrepresentation.
All right? So the back cover reads, addressing the political motive of the distorted and corrupted view that the woman and the ancient crescent horn-headed goat misrepresented as the devil are the causes of the world's evil. William Fleming, in 1870, he's the founder of the ancient Arabic order of the Nobles of Minister Shrine, now called Shrines International.
Yes.
Established in 1870. He took, William Fleming, all right, Walter Fleming. Walter Fleming took the Moorish scimitar and placed it above the crescent and star. He did that, not the brothers. Wow. The brothers didn't do that. All right? The only thing you will contribute to the Europeans is the distortion. They placed the Moorish scimitar above the crescent and the star. When the stroking a woman's head and the five-pointed star. So that's what that does. It represents the subjugation of this ancient knowledge. The Moors being his counter. So our brothers who are Shriners, they wear this. You know, Europeans are laughing behind their backs.
Yeah, mocking them.
All right? So the scimitar is ours. The crescent star is ours. All right? But once again, the star represents Venus. And the moon represents the crescent moon represents the moon. All right, so I go into, the science of this, and the culture aspect of it. All right, so the book is available now. Go to moorsandmasonry.org. All right, the book is available now. I just don't have it with me. They're coming in the mail on Tuesday.
All right.
All right.
How much it costs?
40 for the book. And this is the size. Once again, 5.5 by 8.5. All right, I have other books over there, Moors and Masonry, and Masonic Conference Square, and I'll be getting some more etymology books in soon.
All right.
Let's see next.
Yeah. My question's a little off topic.
In a previous video, you mentioned that there only exist in this world heirs, trustees, and beneficiaries. So with us making special appearances in the tribunals, can we actually have our trustee act on our behalf rather than us speaking for ourselves?
All right. Now, this is what you would call, and get into this with everybody, a divinity. Sometimes referred to as a divine. Meaning that you don't have to physically be there.
Right.
This is, again, why we need to enforce the Constitution like Drew Ali said. See, we have relinquished our power by having not enforcing the Constitution like Drew Ali said.
Right.
See, because to enforce the Constitution, then your nationality card changes in your pocket. You know, people have a nationality card, which is a diversity instrument, has not been used as what it is, a diversity instrument. And Moorish Americans who've been technically nationalized were not, in fact, psychologically nationalized or politically, civically nationalized. And therefore, they were not being recognized by the nations of the earth because they were still violating constitutional principles by the day, they themselves. But the problem is not knowing it. And this is the importance of people really learning civics. Because many people didn't know that they're violating. They think that because they went to the temples, got a nationality card, and proclaimed a nationality card that they was on. They got the skates on. And then as soon as the problem came up, they had no defense mechanism. And then the compromised persons claiming to be grand chiefs and moderators and chairmen who were put in power to make law and enforce law were doing exactly not that. And so the whole forum for defending Moors in their lost estate was totally absent. And so everybody was claiming to be Moorish American in color. They're still being color. Yeah. So once you understand those principles, right? You understand that they're claiming to be your trustee. Right. And by virtue, and this is why when you look in the law, and this is why from the beginning, and I think you all can expand on this when you're doing your classes with newcomers. Yeah. Why we go to status, estate, then wardship, then minor and minority. Those are very important for them to look at and analyze because they can actually see the process. Right. However, if no one brings it to their attention, logically they're not thinking. But if they understand that this is how these tribunals are operating, you can sit back and see it taking place. As a matter of fact, they'll take these people in the auction block and they'll say, how many of you in here for tickets and shit? And Viva Fletcher Johnson and Dooba 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 Booby and Skinny B, come on up. Come on down. They all come up line, they line up, and he started making the auctioneers practicing the law from the bench. And he's actually prosecuting them. And giving them fines and all this other stuff and running them through. Right? That's right. And they might have 50 or 60 people that they run through on a light day.
7,000 notes.
Yeah, and break in crazy fiat. Now, at the end of the day, these are all bundled up and they're securitized. But that's how they generate finance. You understand? Now, when you know the law, they can't do that to you. Now, the other way they can do it is because our people are absent of Article 3 venues. It's our duty to enforce it. But of course, we got to get competent so that we comprehend what we're doing, what we're saying, and hold that person who's really an administrative clerk, since he took an oath to that office, in other words, he's colored, yes. But you bring that venue into the common law venue by what you say. And logically, when they see you going that way, they're going to resist because that's their house in the Poconos. That's Susie's college fees that Susie got that your children were, and they get it all from you. See, so we've got to perfect our civic skills and comprehension of what's going on.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Can I interject? So, speaking of Article 3, Section 2, if an administrator or magistrate mentions that you don't have any standing to speak in the courtroom because you're not you're not licensed to practice law.
All right, I'm going to answer this and then we got close because we're over
Islam.
Now, so what do you already know? Now, what you say to that administrator, you say the treaty and the Constitution is supreme law of the land, which keeps you in check, administrative clerk. And the practice of law is everybody's duty. You need no license, and you need not be a member of the Bar Association of England with its expanded branches, some in America. And I'm going to ask you a question. Are you a member of the Bar Association?
Right, yes, he is.
What the hell are you doing up there? You know, you got to really know what you got to really know what's up, see, because they're playing you. It is the duty to enforce the law. It's not a licensed practice. And your club members don't have a license either. Plus, whatever licenses they claim has been extinguished. And since you want to play trustee, you're now assigned, and being the beneficiary, what I want you to do is dismiss all this and compensate me for my time because I missed 2 movies whilst being in here. Then I want you to give me a report on all revenues that came into this building.
Wow. That's a heck of a response.
Oh, and then give me your business number so I can call your boys, your accountants, call the IRS and shit. and watch them start changing their tune. See, but you don't want to get there. You want to develop a diplomatic way of communication, because they're going to get upset because you're freeing their Negro black people who think that they're spiritual
Islam.
Christ people, don't know they're slaves. So they're going to be kind of irritated with you, because what you do, you use the opportunity to teach by virtue, but you don't do it belligerently. You hold them to their obligation. Anyway, we're going to have to close, and I wish we could, you know how we can go over this. But keep in mind, there is no such thing as a license to practice law. And the ones who've been practicing law have been breaking the law by coming in here being members of the bar.
Piracy on high seas.
Yeah, of course they're pirates. All right, so anyway, thank you all for coming out to the House of Reawakening Minds. Thank you for supporting the House of Reawakening Minds. Prepare your questions. Take the notes that we've given you. Do some reference. Do some research. When you come back again, we'll do some more work. All right? Wow. And then from the responses that you get, Dr. Naila, we'll maybe, like we did this time, structure the classes according to the structure around the questions that are coming, so we can make sure that we bring some cures to the people.
Wow.
Right? Anyway, thank you all. Have a grand evening.
That's her different songs. Organize the black one.